Recordings in progress. Hi,
Okay.
Brent.
All right. You might want to record it as well. You see that on the bottom? It says record. I believe you can record as well.
Okay. I'll start recording as soon as, I collect my thoughts here.
Okay.
Okay, join the audio.
Recording in progress.
Okay, I will turn the phone off now, Brent.
Alrighty. All right. Well, this is Brent Rains for Alternate Perceptions Online Magazine. It's late afternoon. Whoops. Turn my phone off. Monday, the 10th of March, 2025. And I'm speaking with Rebecca Renfroe, the author of Quantum Windows and Dimensions, A Christian Woman's Journey of Faith and ET Contact, which was published just last year. And I want to thank her husband, Dan, for helping me get on, do the Skype window here that we can actually record. Thank you, Dan. Okay. Well, anyway, it's good to be able to be with you both.
And you
Uh,
too.
and so we've spoken briefly earlier, and it's you've had quite a lifelong series of experiences with UFO type phenomena and other anomalous manifestations. And so this book actually represents a lot of these things that have happened to you during your lifetime span. You're now in your normal everyday life. You're not just one of these tinfoil hat people. You are actually you've been an actress and you're a musician. I think piano, and you write your own music, and you live a very active lifestyle. It's quite normal, So it's there are just and I know that when we were talking earlier, you said it's difficult a lot of times to get people to really listen and understand without a knee jerk reaction when they hear that you've had these kind of experiences. That even and you have to learn kind of the language of different disciplines or different places where people are coming from in order to really to try to get them to try to stop and listen and to focus on what you're trying to communicate and convey to them about what this has been like. Certainly, that's a problem I think that's common to many experiencers in this. So, anyway, I guess one thing I could start with is what motivated you to write this book and expose yourself to um, you know the world with all
That
of this.
was that was due to Kathy Martin, the researcher author with Stanton
Mm-hmm.
Friedman, and Colonel Phil Bailey, who both encouraged me years ago to write, and
Okay.
and my husband as well, which I
All right. Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, I'm from Maine originally, as I think I told you once, and
great state.
I that's where I was, born and raised, and of course, Portsmouth, New Hampshire was like 95 miles down the road, so I would periodically visit Betty Hill, and of course, Betty Hill was Kathleen's aunt, and I also met Kathleen's mom, but I didn't meet Kathleen herself until August of 2019 over at the Alien Expo in Knoxville, Tennessee. And so it was good to finally meet her. I'd spent quite a bit of time with Betty back like in the 70s. And
That's wonderful, Brent.
so anyway,
Wow.
but anyway, and I've interviewed, Kathleen a couple of times anyway for
And I
alternate
do write
perceptions.
in the book that she and I crossed paths when I was at the Conservatory of Music, when I was also studying at the university side. She was there at the same time. And I do
Oh,
write an account in the book about the fact that I believe we were both on a craft at the same time over the Rhine section, that river there, and the development when she was studying and working. It's very interesting how the paths cross. So I'm just
wow.
thrilled to know of your own background and your connection with that family. That's exciting.
Yeah, I spent about I think it was July of 1976 with Betty Hill and a friend of hers, Marianne Cassio, at her Betty's mother's house over there in Kingston, New Hampshire, um, for about four days and 3 nights. And we rode around and sky watched and went around interviewing people, that we all knew, and that was a lot of fun. And so anyway, um, but that's so. Uh, can you tell a little bit about how you got uh, what brought you into this world, the kind of experiences that started out, your reaction initially, and then how it evolved?
It started when I was little, and there were beginnings with my parents as well. And it lasted all through my life, and it still is. Being aboard the crafts, being in contact. You had asked me initially to put a small list together, but briefly, if we go to the beginning, I had came from a military family, and I was born
Mhm.
on a base in Virginia at at Fort Belvoir, and then we started in Alexandria, then moved to Florida. And then the actual contacts began with my mother. There were three locations, two different states, two locations at the home, at the front door with my mother, where I believe it was connected with time. There were five entities that picked me up. The one in the back field is where I went, and there was a preparation before I entered into what I refer to as interdimension or space between space. There were military there, the ETs there, training them how to fly. It was quite interesting growing up with that from anywhere from 7 to 12. But the ones in the front with my mother began even earlier. I don't write a lot about that because it came later on as my mother talked about it before she passed. And so all of that was very interesting. Then those memories, oh yeah, I remember being at the front door. Is that what that was? Oh boy. It's that kind of thing where all of it starts to piece together,
Yeah,
even after you've written about it and talked about it, there are other things that come back to mind. So, with all that in mind, you asked me to do something very interesting, which I did. So, if people are interested in reading the chronological order of my life, which I try my best to do in the book, they'll find some of these stories and others that aren't. So, you asked me to compile some things together that were different. So, I thought we would do an angel encounter, an ET, dreams and knowings, a paranormal incident, an out of body. And then if we have time, we'll do the phone call that it was really interesting because you
okay.
wanted to, instead of just the ET, you wanted me to address some of the paranormal that's within my life. Am
Right,
I
the
correct
kind
about
of
that?
an overview. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah.
So the angels were always there with me in my childhood. And for
Okay.
me, in my experience, I'm talking about the fact that the angelic realm is different from the ET. The ET is different from our 3D existence. It's all layered. So therefore, I see this in a different light. Angels do not require craft to travel in, and ETs
Mhm.
do. Angels do have, they're beautiful. Some they take form. That's common ground. But I'll go straight to an angelic encounter that was actually fun. I had them since childhood, but this one was really fun later in life.
Okay.
And my mother and her friend, a pastor's wife, we were traveling back from Georgia. And on the way home, we pulled off to the side because it was smoking in the front of the car. So we opened the front of the car, and I was there. And mother was had stepped out, and the pastor's wife had stayed in.
Hmm.
All of a sudden, I'm looking at where we came from, and it's as if space went on space, and it was a gigantic window that had squares in it, and each one was moving. And then at the bottom, there was a small quantum window door that opened, and through it came a white truck. And out of the white truck were white boots, a white outfit, a white hat, and water can, and then something in the other hand. And this figure, which was very angelic like, not scary in form at all, very human form, and just everything was white. Got out and said, "Don't be scared, don't be frightened, ladies," and went straight up, put water back into the section in the cap that had been left off earlier when we had stopped at a station. He screwed it back on, had it all ready, prepared, and then takes off, turns around, goes into the quantum window, and that whole section of space just disappears, and everything goes back into normal. And it was like a painting put on top of the reality of where you are. That's what it was like. I actually draw that and put that in the book, what it was like. And that was a fun one because it showed me that God has an incredible sense of humor and that the angels can take any form and do anything. There are similarities for ETs, but their purpose in my observation and in my account, they're different.
Okay.
So
And all of you observed the same thing at the
yes,
same time?
yeah,
Oh, wow.
yeah. My mother wrote about it separately in her book. The second one was about the ETs, and I talked about the Florida and Georgia. Took place in Florida in our home in two places, the front door and in the back field. In Georgia, at my grandfather's home in Columbus, Georgia, I grew up a great deal on the base there at Fort Benning because we went up many times per year at all the holidays to stay at my grandparents. Both sides of my family were come from Columbus, both of them. So everybody
Oh,
was there, all the cousins, all the family, everyone in one location. It was great.
yeah.
Fabulous family.
Okay.
So in my grandfather's instance, it was the quantum window that would open up. I would know daytime. I would just go out to the forest area. I'd know exactly where to go, and I would jump into that quantum window. That's how I refer to it. Um,
Was it something you could see, or was it just,
yes,
you just, okay.
I also had my husband put that together for me so that we could do the best in showing the reader what I experienced and what it was like. I don't remember everything about it. I just know that in one particular instance, it was so vivid going in and being drawn in by the three small ETs that literally you would take the hand and you would go in through the quantum window, like going through a door or jumping onto something. And it was a beautiful garden, and the garden was very much alive. All of the vibratory energy came off of each one of the plants and the flowers, and everything moved and was just absolutely stunning. And as I had learned from childhood, the military did not choose me for a program. The ETs stayed with me for life. And so there was a difference that I've seen in my life. I do not have a memory of going through a program as a child, but I know that they were testing me. Now, when I look back, they were testing me for some kind of program, which,
Hmm.
because there were several different ones people talk about. Um, and when I grew up, I wrote this one down about dreams, knowing, and visions. It was a common theme in my house because my parents, I grew up in a very wonderful Christian loving home. And we all prayed together, stayed together, went to church together. And it was just a common theme. And knowing God and knowing Christ was, as I put it, was just as easy as turning the page of a book. There was no question as to what was what. And it was a matter of throwing anything out or stomping anybody over the head with your faith. You just practiced what you followed. And in this case, it is, was, and has been, and will be Christ is my personal savior. I don't have any problem with any of those, and respect those of other faith. And I follow what I have found to be of beneficial and loving and I think I boil it down in terms of my faith before I go into what I was going to share is that if I were on a cross and I were roped up there or forced to be up there, glued up there, nailed up there on a cross, be it as it is, I would want to have that much love to look down and forgive. And I think that's kind of where I am in terms of how I look at life. I want to be that loving. I want to be that forgiving. And I hope that we can attain that in our lives and in our countries and our governments and in how we conduct everything that we do in our work. the dreams, knowings, and visions began in childhood. And for me, my parents, if I had a dream or a vision or felt something and I didn't have all the details, they would ask me who it was. And then I would tell them, and then they would either go to them or they would say, well, let's not do anything. We don't have specifics. And there were times there were specifics, and it was always about saving a life. And so I'll do two of those. One was growing up, and I do put this in the book. It had to do with my sister who was going to return back to college with her girlfriends. And
Mhm.
I had had a dream, Brent, of my sister in the back of one of those, the bugs, the Volkswagen bug.
Volkswagen bugs, yeah.
Yeah. And it crashed and it completely pressed in the back. And so whoever
Mm.
was in the back was killed. So when I learned that my sister was, when the dream had been there, and then I learned that all of this was true, I told my sister, I told my mother, and we actually got on the phone with the people she was going to go back with so that we could give them the details of where I saw it, the car we were in, and the whole thing. They chose to go. My sister did not ride back with them. She went a different route.
Okay,
They
yeah.
chose to go. The accident did happen and it did crash in the back of the car, and Donna was not there, so she wasn't killed. So in that's kind of the way it was. That's how I grew up. This was accepted. It was different from learning something from the ETs where they would teach you something different. You would see the future or a hologram, or you would be subject to an experiment of some kind. Um, like jumping off, I do share this, jumping off of a higher location and knowing how to float down.
Mhm.
So the second one I wanted to share took place in college, and I also share this in the book. Uh, Very quickly, the summation is I was there 6 years. I loved academia. And there was a young man I was dating at the time who was an artist, a teacher.
Mhm.
He was also a musician as well. And he was, uh, I had a dream. And in the dream, I had all these details about someone who was visiting him. I got his looks, uh, what he was driving, and how he was going to go back in this motorcycle. And so when I woke up the next day, I said, "Oh, I've got to go find him." Well, he was. It's actually funny. You can picture this. I cut my classes off in
Mhm.
musical theater, and I went to find where he was, and when I found out he was Johnny, he was in his artist class drawing. Now, all when you go into an artist class, you many times you had nude figures. So I run into where he is, and the nude figure's in the center of the room, and all the students are around drawing the nude figure for their art class. And I'm going and screaming his name, and everybody dropped their pencils, and the nude person didn't know what was happening, so they grabbed something to put around him. And then my friend followed me out, and I told him what it was. We met that night with his friend. And then I was able to tell his friend, who looked exactly as I saw him in the dream, he did have a motorcycle. He was going to drive back, and he was not to drive back on because I saw him on a certain road. There was a bridge there, and I saw him, and he was going to become a paraplegic with his accident. So the guy I was dating looked at him and said, "Oh, we may not understand this, but let's go with it. I believe, Rebecca." So he didn't, and he
Wow.
went back home safely, rented a
Yeah.
car, and put in the back. So that's the side of me that where you follow it, especially if you have details, and especially if you have a name, then you don't feel good. You really can't go to sleep until you've done everything you can to reach the person, the individual. And that's been pretty consistent throughout my life. I try not to wait, even if I don't have everything complete, no matter who it is. It could be anybody from the next door neighbor to a governor to a president, whatever it is, you do the best you can. There was a great story, and because I know you know Terry and Kevin Keel.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
this is a fabulous story that incorporates everything. It's
Oh,
just
okay.
marvelous. You're going to love this one. This was during a time I was working with a counselor. I would meet with her clients, if you want to call it spiritual direction, but one of the abilities I've had over the years that I don't share often within the Christian community because they do not consider it right. They don't believe in it. They don't consider it, uh, even though there are biblical illustrations, seeing those who have passed.
Yeah.
So I do not conjure. I do not hold seances. If you're with someone, no matter where you are, whether you're with your spouse or a friend, a family member or somebody else, and someone shows up, I call it a divine visitation. And if there's something to be said or whatever, you do the best you can if you can share it with that person. When I was called to meet with clients, I had a very, Brent, I had a very strict protocol. It was just 14 years of doing this, and I'm talking about strict protocol so that confirmation could be made prior to meeting with whoever it was I was going to meet with. And there was no names I was supposed to know and nothing. And so that God and what I consider the Holy Spirit would confirm what needed to be done. And when I met with them, if their loved one showed up, that was fine. If they didn't and it was someone else, there was something else that God wanted to do in their life. And that's what I call divine visitation. And if nobody showed up, you had a spiritual direction time. Um, and in this particular case, I got a phone call through the counselor to go visit a young child and her mother on a ranch type home, not in my hometown. So it was a little bit of a drive. And I felt very led to get a hold of Terry and Kevin. Kevin doing the video and Terry to be of assistance because this is one of her good, strong areas. And she gave some very, very good advice. And she made a decision when we got there that she would go work with the mother and the child. And if I had any encounters in the house, to make sure the spirits got out. And so we had a great protocol going, and she just had very good advice, and that's the way we did it. And then he was there with her to record anything on video if anything happened. So I did. As soon as I walked in, there was a gentleman there, and he wanted to find his wife. Nancy said her name, and I had to take him out. And later, I actually got an actual photo of the individual. Um, and so at that time, when we all had finished doing what we were doing, we met to go to the outside area because there was a horse in the front, there was a horse in the back, there was a pasture area, a fenced-in area. So we were all walking together. And the boyfriend of this particular mother was not home yet. The child stayed in the house. So the mother, Terry, Kevin, and myself were all walking together across the yard to the back pasture area into another little barn. And all of a sudden, we crossed what felt like a line, a demarcation of some kind. And it was interesting because we all felt it like we went into a totally different space. And we
Hmm.
all stopped in place and we said, what happened? What did we just feel? Like moving through a wave of water, or it was just, we all experienced it. And at that instant, I look to my left, and Brent, there was a whole pasture full of people. There were some were dressed in Civil War clothing. Others were farmers. There were children. They were all standing in the pasture, and they were looking up, and some were looking ahead. And I just went, okay, so let's find out, dear God, what is this about?
Huh.
So so Terry stood off to the side, and Kevin went off to the barn, and then he came back, and we started seeing to film if he could pick up whatever I was seeing, and then I stood off on the side and I said, we're going to call them to leave and to empty out the pasture and to go on. And so Terry stood there as a monitor in her strength in Christ and told them to go on. And the children came up, and it was really interesting.
Now,
Some
did Terry and Kevin, did they see these people or
sometimes they do, and Terry actually experienced something in my home. That's a whole nother story unto itself. But this particular one involved all of these aspects, and that's why I was sharing it, because it was a
oh,
very
okay.
good thing you asked me to do, because it's not in the book at all. And when we got through and everyone who was leaving was going to leave, it was just, I remember there were about two figures left, someone from the Civil War and then someone like a farmer, a female who were just standing there and they were not going. And so but everybody else left, and you can see when they go up. I know this is not theologically, quote, sound in theological terms, but I have learned that there's a lot more to Christ's teaching. There's a lot more in the books. There's a lot more that's there that is not truly understood. And these were not demonic figures. There wasn't anything bone chilling about it. No one drew up anyone, conjured, called forth, did anything. They were there and they needed to go. And it was beautiful. And Terry did a beautiful talking and was right there calling out God's love. And it was just beautiful. So they went back as we finished. We did a little more talking with the mother, and then she went back into the house with her child. Terry and Kevin start packing up to go back to the front of the house to put everything back in the car. So as I'm the last one there, I'm saying my last prayer over the field and over the ground and the area, because you kind of need to seal things up and claim the ground back into God's territory and make sure that everybody is safe and sound and that the bad spirits that had been working in the house were gone. So you pray for the outside and any burials that might have taken that we weren't aware of on the ground. So before I get back into the house to go say goodbye to the mother, the boyfriend of this woman comes out the back door and stands there and just looks at me, gets very up close in my face, very concerned. So I introduce myself and he's not quite sure what to say. And I said, well, I hope everything works out. We were here to help out. We were called by her to be here, with the child. We hope everything works out. Please let us know. And I'm Rebecca, and Terry and Kevin are out front. And I said, and I explained what we were there for. And I said, is it okay with you if I tell you what I see? If someone is behind you? And he appeared a little shaking, and then he calmed down, and then he said, yes. I said, okay, you have a gentleman behind you, and here's what he looks like, and he has a hood over him, and he's telling me, and he's also trying to talk in your ear to tell you to go talk to your brother. So I talked to him a little bit more, and he explained things, and I said, do you have a brother? He said, yes. But he didn't want to say much of anything else. He looked absolutely taken, not so much in shock or anger or anything. He was really taken, and it looked like he was about to just break. So he turned and ran away back into the house. So I said goodbye, everyone. So as I was getting into the car, Brent, he came out of the front door crying, turned me around and said, yes, that was my buddy, my military buddy. He always wore the hoodie. He died on the battlefield. I've been praying for years for him for somebody to see him, or for me to see him, or for him to have a word for me. Or he just went on and on and on. He said, yes, I have a brother and he's in England and I need to find him. It just went on and on and on. So
Wow.
the confirmation came, the restoration of faith came, the wholeness returned. I just encouraged him to go ahead. Don't worry about it. God answered your prayer. I said, there wasn't anything spooky. We didn't do anything wrong. I said, God works in mysterious ways. Just know your prayer was answered. And that's how it's always operated for me, was the restoration of faith. And running out of time, it says. So that's what I wanted to it's
Recording.
the recording. It looks like we're running out of time. Should I keep going? How about
Um, let's
should
see. How long has it been?
I haven't been timing.
Well, yes, you have. It times itself.
It-
Click here.
All right.
Go to more.
Go to more.
Yeah. And Maybe that's not it.
All right. Well, it has a
Apps, go to
question.
apps.
It just has a question here.
There it is. So.
We have 5 minutes. All
no,
right.
That's just a timer.
We do the timer?
Stopwatch. Put a stopwatch.
Okay.
We're wasting time here.
We're wasting time here.
Click it.
All right.
No.
No. Okay. Well, I'm going to go with 5 more minutes here. So I'm going to
Okay.
share one more thing, which was beautiful. Now, this has to do with out of body, and I do share this in the book. There are a
Okay.
lot of people who have near-death experiences.
Right.
Unless you had a question. Do you have a question about one of them, or do you want me to
Oh,
share this last one?
well, I was just wondering that ranch experience you had with Terry and Kevin. Where was that at? Was that in Florida or
Yes,
Tennessee
it
or
was in Florida.
in Florida? Okay. Right.
Yes.
I just wondered. All right
Oh,
then.
I need to finish the rest of the story. Thank you
Oh,
for
okay.
reminding me. I just went whoop when I saw that come up about asking, do we want more time? Okay, the remainder part that was a great confirmation for me also. I called up this lady and I said, would you please check all the rosters and whatever you can find in your community and find out what happened in that area back in the Civil War, 1800s, please check. So she did, and
Yeah.
she called me back weeks later and she said there was a great battle that took place in that area for some reason.
Mm,
So I said, well, then that helps explain a lot. If there was a battle very near that, then that would be extremely helpful. She said, yes, the
oh,
unrest and so forth, and that there were
further
some burials
confirmation.
on
Yeah.
the ground there. And I really thanked her because we need those follow-ups. We need the confirmation to complete as we write about each incident and record things and keep our journals so that we can verify what we had. The out of body was in 2018, and it was a the after I had taken an afternoon nap, and I
Mhm.
woke up hearing the what you call the refrain of the song. So I went and wrote it down, physically wrote down the refrain, and then later that night I had a minor stroke, and I lost the left side of the body for approximately a half an hour. And
Mm,
we thought initially, actually, we thought it was just a blood sugar drain. So he brought me apple juice and so forth, because you can have strange reactions when your blood sugar is real low or something.
yeah.
So we didn't really put it together. That was until the next day. But after another half hour, and we were lying down watching TV, I left my body and I was held against the back of the sofa in a light of beautiful blue love, just pure love. And I was allowed to see the space around me. The TV wasn't on anymore. My husband wasn't there anymore. The room was still the same, but it was emanating brighter golds, brighter red, alive. It was an electrical sense of smell. Just, but I was extremely disappointed because I didn't see an angel. I didn't see my mother, my father, my brother who had passed, none of everybody, none of my cousins who had passed, my grandparents. And Jesus wasn't there. I didn't see a tunnel. I didn't see light. Oh my goodness. What's going on? And the love that was holding me said, look at the body. And the arc over the body, the minor stroke had broken the ethereal layers of the body, and I needed to have that restored.
Huh.
So my husband, after a while, after I'm waiting, because it's a bliss. Once you leave your body, it is just stunning. And whether you're in darkness, whether you're in light of something or whatever, but evidently it wasn't time for me to go, but I wanted to. I just let's go. So I hear my
Uh,
husband's voice, and it
mhm.
sounds like my dad, and he says, "Do you remember?" Because
Yep.
Dan's sitting right
Becky,
here
get up
now.
now. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I went, I said, oh, so I went back into my body, and I could feel the tiredness and everything. And I sat up and I said, "Why did you do that?" He said, "I don't know, just seemed the right thing to do."
Mm.
So the next day,
Yep.
he took me to the hospital. A friend called and said that's what we should do. So that was a God-given call. And I spent next 6 months in some physical therapy, and then eventually worked the piano notes back and started regaining things. And then years later, we came across LifeWave patch, which was incredible, and that restored things back. And it's just been a wonderful, wonderful journey.
Well, that's great. Fascinating series of life experiences, and of course, if people want to find out more, your book, Quantum Windows and Dimensions, for much more detail and information. And since we're about time for this to reach an end, I guess you know we'll have to wrap it up. But anyway, again, thank you, Rebecca, for sharing all this with us and for alternate perceptions, and also Dan for getting us on this Zoom, which I
No problem.
hope that I can go ahead and save and download to my menu page where I can also put it up on YouTube. But anyway, so uh, perhaps down the road we'll cover some more details. Next time I'll be more efficient with Zoom and send the link myself.
We're doing it.
Yes, yes, we are.
You got her done.
So got her down. Yes. So I'll go ahead and I guess I'll hit the record. But I'm not sure if this is all together or not. But
Well, thank you for having me on, Brent.
well, thank you for agreeing to come on. And I know you've been busy, and thank you for taking the time to share these extraordinary experiences. Okay, send a request to meeting host. Huh? Okay.
Did you stop your recording?
Yeah, I clicked the record, and then this thing came up, said send a request to.
I have Paul.
Yeah, stop recording.